This half hour being brought to you by Brewers Outlet, Reagan Street in Sunbury, the beverage supermarket. Imports, domestics, microbrews, the best selection of beer anywhere. Wine coolers, water, soft drinks, snacks, lots and lots of snacks. They roast their peanuts fresh and out every day. 6 great flavors of slushies, ready-to-drink cocktails. High Noon, right? Jack Daniels. They have everything, okay? Crown Royal. And not only that, the pickle bar led by the Barrels and the Dills, my 2 personal favorites. Indeed, second to none. All at Brewers Outlet, Reagan Street in Sunbury, the beverage supermarket. If everybody wants to know the single reason why Notre Dame is in the college football playoff semifinal in the Orange Bowl, it's because of one guy and one guy only. Tony Simeone is the play-by-play voice of Notre Dame. Just so you know, Tony, not every season is like this. Congratulations. You have sounded fabulous all season long, and it's great to talk with you.
Steve, thanks so much. I've been kind of spreading that message. It's starting to stick a little bit that the missing ingredient might have been my involvement with the radio broadcasts, doing the play-by-play, because suddenly Notre Dame's won their first major bowl game in over 30 years, and it just so happens to be my first year. So it's obviously been a thrill, and I've been associated with the university for a while now. But it's been really fun to see this team kind of reach their full potential here in the third year under Marcus Freeman.
Hey, let me ask you something. What's it like for a guy who come out of Pepperdine, West Coast, and to be involved with something iconic like this?
Yeah, I mean, it's unbelievable. When I first moved out here to South Bend, it was 2016, to be involved with the video production crew with Notre Dame Athletics. And when you just take a job like that, you kind of have an idea of what you're getting into, but you don't really know what it's like until you get on campus and you experience the game day. As you mentioned, I went to Pepperdine, so we had no football program.
Right.
So I didn't really, I followed college football, obviously, but didn't have a rooting interest. And so now this is my 9th year being associated with Notre Dame. And just to see it every year, see how much it matters, see how much people care. And then to, of course, have it culminate this year in many ways. They had 2 playoff runs before this in the 14 playoff, but this one, quite frankly, feels a little bit different. It's amazing. It's really hard to put into words, and I just feel really lucky, frankly, to get a front row seat for it this season especially.
All right, so let's talk about this team. They had the Northern Illinois game, which I think shocked everybody. And I really felt that after that game, Notre Dame was in a must-win week every week. They couldn't afford a second loss. What was it about the makeup of this team that said, okay, that's it, we're not letting that happen again?
Yeah, I think it's a testament to Marcus Freeman. I'm fortunate enough to get to sit in on his weekly meetings for home games when he talks with the NBC crew. And he was pretty open throughout the year in those meetings and in the public with press conferences throughout the year. Just that they were, did not prepare the way they needed to for Northern Illinois. They maybe believed a little bit too much of the hype people were giving them after that big win at Texas A&M. And maybe they lost sight of what their overarching goal was. And from that moment forward, to your point, they played like every week could be their last if they didn't win. And they were hammering people all season long. So I think it's a testament to him. He's had a couple of losses now in his head coaching career that are head scratchers at home. They lost to Marshall in his first year in a game that they never thought they would lose. And then it happened again this year against NIU. And I've just always admired how introspective he is. Whenever I get to talk to him or he talks in front of the media, there's no really running away from those disappointments. There's full ownership, and he and his staff, I think, really made a point to look within, address any issues that may have led to that loss at home, and make sure that it was truly an aberration. And now you look back, they're 13-1. They just beat Georgia in the Sugar Bowl. There's only one way to view that game, and it's an aberration that they learned from, as opposed to maybe being a lingering sign of vulnerability. I think that's been totally exercised at this point, and they clearly are the dominant team that they've been every other game except for that one hiccup at home.
Okay, Riley Leonard. Before I get to Riley Leonard, people have talked about the transfers, and Notre Dame has been now more open to transfers. How important, though, was the last offseason for Marcus Freeman and his staff to retain key players, a Xavier Watts, among others, that they were able to retain the foundation and then add in a couple of transfers.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. Xavier Watts, in my opinion, obviously I see him every week, but he's, if not the best safety in the country, certainly one of them. To keep him, he's a guy that could have gone to the NFL. That's huge. Riley Mills, who's out for this game, and the rest of the playoffs, got injured in the opening round against Indiana. He's a guy that easily could have gone to the NFL, a captain on the defensive line that came back. Howard Cross, who will be available despite being kind of banged up late in the year. He's a future pro that's on the defensive line that could have gone. Jack Kaiser, the sixth-year captain and linebacker, that easily can move on to the next stage. These are all on the defensive side of the ball, guys that they brought back, and it's a huge reason why this defense is one of the best in the country. So I think you're right. They injected a ton of skill and veteran skill at that across the board on this roster, but those in particular, four key guys coming back that could have left, Cross, Mills, Kaiser, and Watts are a huge reason why they're here today. It's hard to imagine them making the semifinal without those four guys.
No question about that. When I look at Riley Leonard, Hartman came in. He was going to be the whole thing, and it turned out okay for him. Leonard comes in from Duke. What has he added that's made a difference in this offense, in your opinion?
Yeah, I think it's obviously the running ability that sets him apart from a lot of quarterbacks, right? In the Sugar Bowl, he ran it 14 times for 80 yards. That's just a huge weapon to have in your offensive attack. When the quarterback's an option to run, if you can ask any defensive coordinator, it's just going to make your life more difficult. So, he's their second leading rusher this year behind Jeremiah Love, who's a little banged up coming into this game. Right. And then as the year's gone along, in the passing game, I just think he and offensive coordinator Mike Denbrock have figured out what works best for them. He missed the spring because he was coming back from injury last year. So it took him a while to just get up to speed, I think. That's why you saw the hiccup against Northern Illinois. I think, in hearing from Mike Denbrock and him throughout the year, they've gotten more comfortable as the season has gone along, and they've just figured out what play calls, what passing attack works best for them, so that as you've seen the season progress, he's now up to 67% completion rate. They're not really trying to force the ball downfield unless it's there. They're taking what's given to him. Only 6 picks. I think he deserves a ton of credit for protecting the football that way. I think he's maybe fumbled once. I don't think they lost it. I have to double check on the stats there. But as a quarterback, to have as much pressure around him, the way he's been able to run it and protect the ball, throw it better really with every passing week and not give it away, that's how he's improved throughout the year. And I think the play calling, he and Mike Denbrock in unison have found a really good kind of system to work through here in the back half of the season.
Right, the two running backs. Penn State has a dynamic duo, and Nicholas Singleton and Katron Allen are both over 1,000 yards. What's made Love and Price work so well together back there?
Yeah, I think this is going to be such a fun game, and I hope Jeremiah Love is close to full strength. I don't know where he's going to be, but I think that Penn State is the first team that Notre Dame's going to see this year that has a case that they have just as dynamic of a backfield 1-2 punch as Notre Dame does. Jadarian Price came in a couple years ago. This is his third year, and he was a really exciting back. Hurt his Achilles, so he missed his first season in 2022. And then last year backed up Audric Estime, who, of course, is with the Broncos now this year in the NFL. And I think Jadarian Price is the kind of back that could easily be this team's number one back, if not for Jeremiah Love, who's now a sophomore and was just incredible. I'm not sure how many Penn State fans have seen the highlights, but he's got some spectacular hurdles throughout the year where he's just leaping over defensive backs in a way that, quite frankly, Notre Dame fans haven't seen from running back maybe ever. I mean, this is an athlete really unlike anything we've seen in a long time in South Bend. He set a record for consecutive touchdowns, rushing touchdowns in a game by a back at Notre Dame. He scored one in all of the first 13 games. The only game he's not scored a touchdown yet in this year was the most recent one against the Sugar Bowl, and he kind of banged up his knee, a knee he also banged up against USC at the end of the regular season. So, listen, I hope he's in a position where he can get on the field and play. There's no, he's available. There's no official word on necessarily his status or percentage. I think it's unlikely you're going to see 100% of Jeremiah Love at this point in the season, just because of the wear and tear and having to leave multiple games with a lower body injury. But that said, when he and Price are going at the same time, they really are dynamic. They can both be big home run hitters, and they can also put their head down and take on contact. They look different physically, Steve, but they really do run similarly in the sense that when they hit the hole, they hit it with velocity.
Yeah, and so impressed by both of them, especially with that big offensive line. I got to ask about the lacrosse player. What is his presence meant that he has played and won a national championship, and how that can translate to the rest of the team because he's lived it while the rest of them have not?
Yeah, I think it's something Marcus Freeman has pointed out and really embraces. I think there's a lot of coaches out there that might be squirmish about their star receiver playing another sport in the spring where you obviously risk injury and certainly are not maybe getting the rest and recovery that the rest of your team is getting during that time as well. But Jordan Faison scored 22 goals. He was the fifth leading goal scorer on what's now a two-time defending national championship lacrosse team. And Marcus Freeman looks at that as you mentioned, great experience, of course, to play and be in big games and be in locker rooms where you're having to go through trials and tribulations. But it's just a testament to his athleticism as well, and he doesn't want to limit that in any way. And really, Jordan Faison was, I think he was banged up early in the year, wasn't quite the guy we saw at the end of last year, early this year. But here in the playoffs, he's been their best receiver. He's got 11 catches, over 130 yards in the two games combined. He is the difference maker in the passing game, the guy that can kind of break it open over the top. And yeah, I think there's no doubt that lacrosse experience is an absolute asset for him. And if he is able to get free in this game, it just totally changes their offense to have a dynamic threat like him running free down in the secondary.
That's one thing about this grind, is that both teams, you mentioned Love, people have talked about Abdul Carter, but guys will get banged up in this thing. Riley Mills is out. Howard Cross got banged up. Love got banged up. How tough is it tests your depth, but how tough is the grind, in your opinion, now after seeing a couple of games like this?
Yeah, it's definitely kind of the new element we're all learning about in this 12-team playoff. I think about, frankly, like the NBA playoffs every year. You get there and it seems like all the stars, or a lot of stars, are always out. NFL, you see with the grind of the season. This is just a new element to it. So like you said, it tests every team's depth. And I think that what I've been most impressed by with Notre Dame is they haven't used it as an excuse. I mean, Notre Dame's probably down 4 of their top 6 or 7 defensive players going into the Georgia game. And that's the toughest opponent they've played all year. Right. And their defense looked phenomenal. They didn't appear to really lose a beat. That's a testament to them not kind of giving in to what they easily could. And I think that the grind of this season, you're going to maybe see as the years go along in this 12-team format, you're going to have to maybe get creative with how you utilize your depth throughout the regular season. Fortunately, Notre Dame's been able to backfill some of these positions, but I do wonder if you'll see people manage snap counts differently as the years go along, because I think, Penn State, if they go all the way, you'll play a 17-game season.
That's right.
And this is a team or a sport that, in some instances, you're playing a 12-game season in years past. So there's going to have to be an adjustment made, and especially this quick turnaround. Everyone's made a big deal about Notre Dame having 7 days as opposed to 9, but it's just tough this time of year when you're playing your most physical, biggest games of the season to turn it around this quickly for game 14 going on 15. It'll be a test, and I think you're going to have to rely on your adrenaline a lot in games like this.
The giveaway takeaway thing's big. It's plus 18, 31 takeaways, 158 points off of takeaways. I mean, obviously, it's not like I don't personally know Al Golden. I still get Christmas cards from him. I'm not kidding.
Did you get one this year? You still got one this year?
Oh, yeah. Absolutely.
That's great.
Oh, yeah. No, he's the best. I think so highly of Al. But let me ask you what his philosophy in conjunction with the talent has meant.
Yeah, I mean, Al Golden is unbelievable. You obviously know him better than I do on a personal level. But the way, he speaks about this place, he wanted to come work with Marcus Freeman, and he's been with Marcus Freeman as a DC every year he's been the head coach. And they do, especially here in years two and three. But it's definitely started with year one and just really manifested itself in year 2 and year 3. They've really prioritized taking away the ball, like you said. And when they take it away, they want to go score, too. You mentioned the points off turnovers. If they're not taking it to the end zone themselves, they're setting the offense up in a great position. And he's absolutely maximized. You mentioned Xavier Watts. I think a lot of that, Al Golden's philosophy has helped him shine in the secondary. He, of course, is not going to take that credit. He's always going to defer the credit to the players on the field and the leaders like Watts and Kaiser. But there's no doubt that he's had a massive impact. His experience at all levels. Of course, he came from the Bengals after their Super Bowl run. Mm-hmm. I think that obviously goes a long way with a bunch of college-age students that are hoping to play at that level, that he can coach them in a way that will set them up for the next stage of their career. So it's been so fun to watch what they do on the defensive side of the ball. I think it was last year they were the number 1 red zone defense. This year they're just remarkable, taking the ball away more than anybody else. When they're at their best, they're flying around and they are taking the ball away. And I think they're going to need to do that, obviously, in this game against Penn State to have the impact they want to tilt the game.
And the special teams part, I think I've got 6 block kicks on this team. Young has 3 of them. The kickoff return by the Marshall transfer Harrison, which was critical in the Georgia game. What have special teams meant to the formula with which Marcus Freeman plays?
Yeah, it's my favorite part, actually, about Marcus Freeman that maybe doesn't get enough attention, but all 3 years, his special teams have been, I think, incredible. So Brian Mason was his coordinator in his first year, who they were so good on special teams that got him a job with the Indianapolis Colts. And now Marty Biaggi is in as the special teams coach. The only area they struggled in special teams this year was field goal kicking at times, and Mitch Jeter has come on really strong here at the end of the year to at least apparently quell any of those concerns. But the fakes that they've run this season have been remarkable. I mean, you saw the one in the Georgia game where they take the special teams unit on, they run them all off legally, bring the offense on because they never touched the ball over center. It was so deceptive that you've got the Georgia coaching staff claiming it was an illegal substitution, but it wasn't because they're that dialed in on the rule book. They've run multiple fakes this year where they've brought out a former quarterback in Tyler Buckner, who transferred to Alabama, then transferred back as a wide receiver. He wears the same number as one of the holders, and so when he comes on the field, to take a snap, sometimes he's thrown out of a fake formation or run. I mean, what they've thought of on some of these fakes is just unbelievable. And Marcus Freeman has called them from inside his own 30 on 4th and 7, for instance. So there is just no part of the game that he's unwilling to take that chance. If he thinks that they're in a position to exploit something, they'll do it. He's been aggressive on 4th down in the same way. And that's what, to me, has been so impressive watching him in year 3. I think the special teams aggressiveness, the 4th down aggressiveness, that is what has really stood out to me in his evolution as a coach. And it's just amazing to watch that in real time, see someone kind of mature into the job in a way that is just, it's unbelievable that a guy under 40 years old is doing this in his first head coaching stint at this level. It's really fun to watch.
It's going to be a terrific game. Looking forward to it. Looking forward to seeing you. And I'll see you on Thursday night over at the Orange Bowl. We'll be stuck in the corner. Enjoy it.
Can't wait to see you as well, and we'll have the binoculars ready, no doubt.
No question. Tony, absolute pleasure. You're a pro's pro. Thank you so much.
All right, thank you. We'll see you down there.
You bet. All right, looking forward to that. That will be on, ladies and gentlemen, Thursday night. We're on beginning at 6 o'clock. That, of course, unless somebody has scheduled something else I don't know about. So, yeah. This will be a lot of fun. And you want to be in this spot. This is where you want to be. And it's that's what makes it great. People talk about bowl games and so forth. Bowl games are great. They're wonderful. But this is different. I mean, this is like being in the NCAA basketball tournament as opposed to being in the NIT. It's what it is. All right, this half hour brought to you by Brewers Outlet, Reagan Street in Sunbury, the beverage supermarket. Stock up for the Orange Bowl right now here on News Radio 1070 WKOK. Purdy Insurance is the best of the business. Auto, home, life, business, boat, motorcycle, RV. They do a great job of making sure you're fully insured because we have a multitude of insurance needs. And not only that, but they do everything they can to save you money because customer service means everything to them. At Purdy Insurance, Market Street in Sunbury, go to purdyinsurance.com. Joined now by the outstanding play-by-play voice of the Pittsburgh Steelers, Rob King. Rob, welcome back. What a pleasure. Thanks so much for your time.
Steve, I'll tell you, I know we want to talk Steelers. I'd love to talk Penn State football with you. How about your Nittany Lions, huh?
Yeah, it's been quite a run, and they've played well. And you know what's interesting, Rob, is that, if anybody knows this, you would. There are two elements that, no matter what the conditions or the location of the game, if you have defense and a running game, you're going to win games, or at least put yourself in a position to win. Penn State's rushed for over 200 yards in each of their last 4 games. And the defense is playing at a high level. And when you've got those two things going, Rob, it puts you in at least a good spot.
They travel. It doesn't matter if it's 100 degrees in Miami or, minus 10 degrees in New England. If it's snowing, raining, whatever it is, if you can play defense and you can dictate how things are going to go along the offensive line, you're going to win football games.
And that's what Penn State has right now. Between Allen and Singleton, the way the defense is playing, they have put themselves in a great spot. And now they see if they can win one more and get to the title game. It's, what these fun runs are like because you cover the Steelers when they've made runs to Super Bowls. And you get into something like this, is it a quick turnover and there's a lot to it and there's a grind to it, but it's a fun grind.
It is. It reminds me of the Penguins, marching to 3 Stanley Cups. So while I've been here, a couple Super Bowls too along the way. It's so much fun. And, I'm not as quite as attuned with the college scene as I have been over the years just because of the dictates of the job. But, there's always been this great debate, the SEC versus the Big Ten. The ACC will have some years in which they think they're better. But, the way the Big Ten has performed, in the postseason, I'm sure is gratifying to a lot of Big Ten fans. Isn't it funny how, you can't stand Michigan, you can't stand Ohio State, but there's a little part of you that comes together over something like this because you want to prove to everyone your conference is the best.
Right, and it does come like that. And it's interesting when it does happen. You're like, okay, play them this year. All right, they won it. Well, I think that's the same thing for those who played Penn State and Ohio State this year. I think there's some sense of I can't stand the butt.
Yeah, that's right.
I don't like Texas and Notre Dame either, so go from there. This stretch run you and I both knew for the Steelers was going to be tough. I mean, we knew that. And it's a kind of stretch that can, where the warts get a little accentuated. Along the way, in watching them, what are a couple of things that are actually positives that they can build on, especially going into this weekend?
I think, to me, the things that have cost them are also some of the things that I think can be, sort of somewhat positives as well. So in every game, they were in every one of these games. They're marching against Philadelphia, late in the third quarter, trying to tie the score up. It's the best drive of the game. They pitch it to Najee Harris, who never fumbles. He drops the snap. Philadelphia takes possession of the game, and it really was over from there. You could say the same thing with Baltimore. Russell Wilson's running it in. He gets inside the 5. He's hit. He coughs up the football. Baltimore recovers. And instead of you going up 14-7, I think it would have been at that point, Baltimore comes back. In this last game, Jalen Warren runs it in. You're up. Boswell's going to kick the extra point. You're going to be up 14-13. Well, hang on a second. There's a holding penalty, which looked dubious. I'm not a big one for criticizing the officials. That looked like a tough call. Mm-hmm. Next play, interception. You never do take that lead. So the fact that you were in all these games and things happened that were uncharacteristic to sort of turn the tide. Najee Harris doesn't fumble. This has been one of the best turnover margin teams in the league. They're number 2 right now. But during this losing streak, they've been a minus in that department. That's not like them. There were 4 straight footballs on the field, 3 in Baltimore and then 1 in Kansas City, and the Steelers didn't recover any of them. And that, some of that's just bad luck, I think. I know every team, teaches how to script the ball and how to get on the ball. The Steelers have been very, very good at it, well better than most teams. They've won a lot of games because they've won the turnover margin. And not being able to do that, and some of that is just bad luck. Now, would you like to have stemmed the tide at certain moments? Yeah, I think I'd feel more comfortable if they'd have stemmed the tide against some of these elite teams, maybe given the offense one more shot or made one more defensive stand. That didn't happen, but I think that the Steelers can look back at these 3 games and say a lot of what happened was their own doing, and it wasn't a trend that normally happens. It was outlier events happening that caused them to not at least be in these games.
Is this a case? Look, the league's tough. Winning is hard. Is the issue with the Steelers that the margin of error is thin and they can't stray too far on the margin of error?
Yeah, I think that's, Steve, I think that's true for a lot of teams. I think that most games seem to come down to 5 or 6 plays. And the good teams make those 5 or 6 plays, and the bad teams don't make those 5 or 6 plays. I just got finished before this call watching the Bengals-Browns game in preparation for the game tomorrow night. The Browns on the opening drive looked like they scored a touchdown. Maybe they should have reviewed it. They didn't. They come back the very next play. They fumble on the 1-foot line. The Bengals march the length of the field and score a touchdown. The Browns turn it over again, marching in to try to turn it into a 1-score game late. The 2 or 3 plays, and then you look at the final score. Cincinnati throws a touchdown pass. I don't know why they threw that ball at the end of the game to make it look like the margin was a lot bigger, but the margin was really 4, 5, 6 plays, and that happens a lot. And when you're the better team, you win those games. And so I think a lot of bad teams can say, well, if we made a play here or a play there. Again, if this had been simply the case of, the Steelers just couldn't get off the field on 3rd down. Yes, that was part of the factors in Philadelphia. But again, to me, it was the fact that they did things that they don't normally do. And yes, the margin of error is slim for them, but that's the way the Steelers have won football games. They're the number 1 by a lot of metrics, the number 1 special teams outfit in the NFL. They commit fewer penalty yards by almost 13 yards per game than their opponents. Those are real yards. But just to give you an indication of what that means, instead of being 16th in total offense, if you gave those 13 penalty yards a game, the Steelers bump up to 14th in the league in offense. I mean, those are real yards. The Steelers win those that way a lot. They can't afford to make those kind of mistakes. I think they can against lesser teams because I think Russell Wilson gives them a more explosive dynamic at the quarterback position, but I don't believe they can do that against the better teams and expect to win.
Cincinnati's an interesting team because I think defensively maybe they're a little bit better than they were midseason, but the Joe Burrow factor, T. Higgins has played well, Chase. When you see Burrow and what he can do, I mean, what impresses you about him, Rob?
Absolutely everything.
Yeah.
I mean, he's just so good, Steve. I mean, I'm watching, as the season unfolds here, watching these games in preparation for this one. And obviously, I watched a bunch before week 13, and he can if you let him stand in the pocket, he'll pick you apart. If you blitz him, he can make quick decisions and identify that. Mike Tomlin described him as a guy who is so in tune and in such great command with what his team can do that he has the luxury of that head space, that mind space, to be able to diagnose what you're doing. And so he always seems to have an answer. He's way more mobile than people think. He generally will move up in the pocket or get out of the pocket to escape in an effort to look downfield, but he can also run. He's more athletic than you think, and he can throw on the run. And he's just, we just saw Patrick Mahomes make we saw him make a backhanded pass in the preseason, and he'll make a basketball pass. And there's a little bit of that in Burrow. And as far as gunning the ball and throwing it accurately, it's hard to find anybody who's his peer in the NFL. So he can really do everything, and he does it in complete command of that offense. And he's got tremendous weapons to throw to as well.
The George Pickens factor, when he is engaged on the field and in tune with everybody else, what kind of difference does he make, Rob?
He is, to me, he's, pretty much in that same conversation talent-wise with the top guys in the league.
Yep.
If you put him in a different uniform and put a different number on him and said he is, receiver X, he's Jefferson or whatever, you wouldn't bat an eye. I mean, he can look like that kind of a player. Difficult to tackle, great hands. He's really the preeminent deep threat in the NFL. With apologies to Chase, Chase has played 5 more games than George Pickens,
right,
and they both have the same amount of receptions of 30 or more yards. They lead the NFL in that department, and Chase has been the best yards after catch player in the NFL since he came into the league. A lot of it with George is the deep ball. He's so good at the deep ball. He is a premier threat, and I think the Steelers saw what life without him was like. We just talked about Cincinnati. Without T. Higgins, they're 1-4.
Right.
And they've got Chase. That drop off to the next guy. It's big in Cincinnati. Josevich is a fine player in his own right, but it's big there, and it's big in Pittsburgh. And the Steelers, I think they knew that, and that was why they were rumored to be going out after Brandon Ayuk and others in trades, and why they did make a smaller trade to pick up Mike Williams at the trade deadline, because they know that could potentially be an issue if he's not out there. When he is out there, everybody falls into place. Pat Freiermuth has become a really fine tight end in the NFL. The Steelers run the ball high amount, so he's probably never going to put up massive receiving yard numbers. But he's their number 2 threat behind George Pickens. And they have other guys like Calvin Austin that can do things. They do a good job of mixing and matching down the line, Steve. So if a team has a really good slot, maybe it isn't Calvin Austin's game this week, but
right,
you're not going to have 2 great corners, a great slot corner, a great safety to cover Pat Freiermuth at the tight end, and then another safety to deal with Darnell Washington. And so whereas they don't have maybe the jaw-dropping talent, they have enough breadth of talent, in my opinion, to make them a good matchup team. You can go in and say, okay, this week it's going to be Freiermuth. The last time they played, 13 for 13 to the running backs. The running backs had a huge game receiving. So, and they're both capable receivers. But it all starts with Pickens. Without Pickens, now that sort of ratchets things down one level for everybody else and makes it much easier for opposing defenses to defend the Steelers' passing game.
And that's the way the league is designed. The league is designed where right now there's no dominant team. There are teams with great records, but there's nobody that's perfect at every position along the way.
Right.
You did see the Eagles in person, obviously different conference, and the NFC is an interesting ride, especially with the way the NFC North is. But what impression did the Eagles give you just seeing them in person?
They were really good. You talk about talent, and under Mike Tomlin, the Steelers have done a really good job stopping the run. They've done an excellent job with dual threat quarterbacks for the most part. They did a pretty good job with Barkley and Hurts, and it goes to show you that that's not a one-dimensional team. Hey, you slowed down Barkley, you slowed down Hurts in the running game. Well, then Hurts just picked you apart in the passing game, and you've got 2 outstanding receivers. A.J. Brown is tremendous. Yep. Devontae Smith is very good. Mm-hmm. Barkley's sensational. It's good to see him. It's good to see him in a different environment. We all knew he was good, but it's such a team sport in football. He was on some bad Giants teams, and now you see him with the Eagles. I mean, that play he made, leaping over the defender backwards. I've never seen anything like that. None of us have. It's a first.
No.
He's a tremendous talent. I think that's a really good team. If you told me they're getting out of the NFC and they're going to be in the Super Bowl, I would not be in the least bit surprised. They're an outstanding team.
Well, I think one of these I told you before, but we were at practice on Sunday night, and somebody came over with their phone. They said, "You got to see the play Barkley made." And at the beginning of the play, remember the beginning of the play, Barkley makes a spin move. Now, we've seen him make the spin move how many times here? And one of the team doctors looks over, he says, "Wow, what a spin move." And Kenny Sanders says, "Wait." And then we saw him leap backwards. When I saw Saquon in May, I said, you must wake up every day and think about those 5 guys in front of you and think of what can be. He goes, oh yeah. Well, he ended up with 2,000 yards. It's been remarkable for him.
Yeah. But the other thing is, too, is, I don't know him personally. I've never met him. But when you hear about what a really good guy he is and how all his teammates love him, it is hard not to root for a guy like that.
Absolutely. T.J. Watt's the same way, and he has to fight through so much, whether it's just all the attention or the injuries. Where is he right now? Because when he's right, the Steelers seem to be right.
Yeah, I think the break is really good for him. Yeah. He dealt for most of that 3-game stretch on a gimpy ankle, and no time to recover. You play 3 games in 11 days. Against top opponents, there's no time to recover. Anybody who's ever sprained an ankle playing basketball or stepping off a curb the wrong way knows that you have to give it rest. Look, I don't care how the trainers are great and they're getting unbelievable attention, and yet the body still there's nothing like time. And now with that great training staff and the time, hopefully he's going to be good. And I also think I'll be very interested, Steve, to see how the team comes out tomorrow night, because it's basically been like, they talk about that Thursday night football game, what a drag it is, but then you get, in essence, a mini bye.
Right.
The Steelers, Joey Porter Jr. is going to be back. They are pretty much 100% healthy going into this game, and I think that's a good spot to be. And, I'm sure this is going to have their attention, this game, because they want to, more than anything else, more than seeding or anything else, they need to get back to playing the kind of football they were playing when they went 10-3.
Yeah.
And T.J. Watt is a huge part of that. And so him getting that extra rest and the other guys coming back behind you, again, we talk about the ultimate team sport. Barkley, a great player, but helped out by everything around him in Philadelphia. Yeah. Watt needs he needs a little help too. He needs Joey Porter on the back end, and he needs Deshaun Elliott back there and healthy. So I think the Steelers are, they're health-wise, they're as good as they can be right now, and better than most teams, certainly better than the Bengals heading into this Week 18 matchup.
Finally, Rob, do the Steelers ever play on Sundays?
It's funny, Steve. I was talking to the Chiefs crew, their broadcasting crew before the game, and we were talking about the crazy schedule. And Mitch Hoffman, he looked at me and he said, the Chiefs have played every day of the week this year except Tuesday.
Yeah.
I was like, wow, that's crazy. Because they had that Black Friday game, and when you're, and the thing is, I don't know if you've seen the Hard Knocks, but Mike Tomlin was talking about that. Look, when you're playing on Sunday, LeBron James has played on Sunday for 20 straight years. Why? Because he's LeBron James.
That's right.
Everybody's home and everybody wants to see him.
Yeah.
So if you're the team playing on Christmas Day or Monday night or Saturday, it's an honor because it means that, everybody wants you to be a team that, that everybody wants to watch you at home. You're the kind of team that's going to draw fans to the TV on a holiday or a Saturday or a Monday night. So, but how about that with the Chiefs? Every day but Tuesday. Isn't that crazy?
But you know what? That's what happens when you're a name and you're the show. And the Steelers appeal as a draw in stadiums because you see it. There's more Steeler fans at every road game. And on TV means that the NFL wants to put them in spots because people want to see them. Same thing with Kansas City. That's why you end up sometimes playing on Sunday.
That's exactly right. And it's an honor, and it is, Steelers Nation going around. And then the other fans, in their own way signaling that the Steelers are number one as the team buses go by.
Yeah.
Not usually using the index finger when they're signaling their love of the Steelers, but it's Steelers Nation shows up, and people opposing teams want to see them too. So fun stuff.
There was a game in Iowa very quickly, and Penn State's pulling up, and Jack Ham and I are sitting in the back of the bus, and there's this college-age girl, and she's telling Penn State they're number one without using the index finger. And I looked at Jack, I said, her parents must be so proud.
That's good stuff, man. Hey, listen, thank goodness they're there, because then we can all talk about sports all the time and let everybody else handle the real world.
Absolutely. Hey, Rob, you're the best. You've had a phenomenal season. Love listening to the broadcast. And good luck to you and everybody along the way. Let's get it done.
Steve, it means a lot for you to say that. Thank you. And anytime I can come on, let's hope for a good deep run for the Steelers and a continuing run for your Penn State Nittany Lions.
You are rolling. You're speaking to the choir. Thanks so much, Rob.
See you, Steve. Thank you.
The outstanding Rob King, the voice of the Pittsburgh Steelers. What a job he's been doing all season long. And this half hour brought to you by Purdy Insurance, Market Street in Sunbury. Go to purdyinsurance.com as we continue on News Radio 1070 WKOK.